So here's a little silly article from a silly female by Marie Ann Slaughter. This is the intro to this article is why women still can't have it all. It's time to stop focusing on ourselves and say a woman who left a position of power, the woman who have managed to do both mother and be professional, are superhuman, rich or self-employed. If we truly believe in equality for all women, or equal opportunity for all women, here's what has to change. Now, this is the whole point of this article: is if you want women to be able to compete in a very competitive field that is demanding of your time, attention, you're gonna have to change the rules, because if you don't change the rules, these women can't do that. And she stated herself in the article that the women who can do that are absolutely super rich. They have five, six, seven, eight, nine nannies. They don't raise their own children. They pay another man's wife, a few of them, to watch their children while they go out and make the money. But let's start with the article right here. 18 months, my first job as a woman director of policy programming at the State Department, a foreign policy dream job that traces its origins back to George Kennan. I found myself in New York at the time, the United Nations Annual Assembly for every foreign minister and head of state in the world. On a Wednesday evening, President and Mrs. Obama hosted a glamorous reception at the American Museum of Natural History. I skipped campaign greetings greeted foreign dignitaries and mingled, but I could not stop thinking about my 14-year-old son. Uh, that's funny. Remember when Hillary a few months back said that women need to stop complaining? She's talking about women just like this. But anyways, who had started eighth grade 3 weeks earlier and was already resuming what had become of his pattern of skipping homework, disrupting in class, failing math, and turning out any adult who tried to reach out to him. Over the summer, we had barely spoken to each other, or more accurate, he had barely spoken to me. In the previous spring, I had received several urgent phone calls on one day of an important meeting that required me to take the first train from Washington, D.C., where I worked, back to New Jersey, where I live. My husband, who has always done everything possible to support my career, took care of him and his 12-year-old brother during the week. Outside of those midweek emergencies, I came home only on the weekends. So basically, she's let us know that she chose to be a weekend mom. She's only seeing her kid 2 weekends, 2 days out of the week. So she sees her child, two of them, both boys, 8 days out of a month. And I guess now she knows what it feels like to be a man who's been divorced and has his parent rights stricken from him, reduced to weekends. And in reality, most men only get every other weekend. So I guess she's having to deal with that situation without being a divorced mother. She's a married mom, but she only gets to see her kids twice a week because of a position she chose to have, which she doesn't have to have. She does have a regular job where she can make time and see her children, but she chose not to do that. And again, this is what Hillary was talking about when she said these women need to stop complaining. Back to the article. As the evenings wore on, I ran into a colleague who had a senior position in the White House. She has two sons exactly my son's age, but she had chose to move them to California, to D.C., where she got her job, which meant her husband commuted back and forth regularly. I wouldn't be about that life. I told her how difficult I was finding it to be away from my son when he clearly needed me. Then I said, when this is over, I'm going to write open and women can't have it all. That's the basis of this whole article. She's actually acknowledging that, it's difficult to try to be superwoman and supermom at the same damn time. And you'd think the article will be good, hearing that part of it where she's acknowledging it. and but she feels some type of way because she feels like she has some type of obligation to meet this standard that no one expects anyone to meet. No man who's been working for centuries is expected to be the greatest father and be the best provider. That's part of life. Men moving away, sometimes going to different cities to find work. You know what I mean? Like, no man has ever been expected to do all that. Yet, because feminism is not about equality, it's about female superiority, they're trying to prove that they're better than men by saying they can do that. This is the one article gets silly because she wants to admit it and acknowledge that it's difficult, it's not natural, it's not normal, and it shouldn't, be the case. But this is what goes on. She was horrified. This is when the person responding to her about writing that women can't have it all title. You can't write that, she said. You of all people. What she meant was that such a statement coming from a high profile career woman, a role model, would be a terrible sign for younger generations of women. So, start right there. She can't write this reality that men have been saying, traditionalists have been saying for a while. Even if you look at society, it says that because these situations tend to turn out worse situations for the family structure when it comes to divorce, when it comes to the child's behavior. There was a study that said that children even come out better when they have two parents and being poor than having one parent that's wealthy. Some people don't believe that, but I believe that to be true. But anyways, back to it. She says she's a role model. That would be a terrible sign for younger generations of women. So again, instead of telling these young women the truth, you'd rather have them believe some delusional world. But by the end of the evening, she had already talked me out of it. It was that simple. She's going to write an article telling how difficult it is, how hard it is. She's going to tell them the truth in her form of a blog or a letter or whatever. But she was easily convinced by another feminist not to do it. But for the remainder of my stint in Washington, I was increasingly aware that the feminist beliefs, which I had built my entire career, were shifting under my feet. Again, people say that society told women they can have it all. I don't, not feminism, but that's not true. It wasn't society. Really, it's women, feminists telling women that they need to have it all. Not um, society, not men. Men don't tell women they need to do all this stuff. This is another woman telling another woman that, yo, you can't write an article telling women that it's difficult and it's hard and that there needs to be some type of compromise. Anyways, I had always assumed that if I get my foreign policy job in the State Department or White House while my party was in power, I would stay the course long as I had the opportunity to do the work I love. But January 11, when my 2-year public service leave at the university was up, I hurried home as fast as I could. So basically, she was on leave from her regular job where she could be at home with her children. And I guess after 2 years, you lose your whatever that is. The teachers get in, they get locked in, and they can't get fired. They lose that. So she had to leave Washington so she can go back and do that. Yeah, she's gonna lose her tenure. A rude epiphany hit me soon after I got there. When people asked me why I had left a government, I explained to them I'd come home not only because of the rules of the university, you lose your tenure after 2 years, because it was my desire to be with my family. The conclusion is that juggling high-level government work with the needs of two teenage boys was not possible. I have not yet exactly left the ranks of full-time career women. She lynches a whole bunch of nonsense that she does because she wants kudos and credit for just doing her job. I teach a full course load, regular print, online columns, foreign policy, get 40, 50 speeches a year, apparently appear on regular TV and radio, appear on TV regularly, um, working on a new academic book, but I routinely get reactions from other angry, old, bitter feminists her age and older that range from disappointment, it's such a pity that you have to leave Washington, to conceding. I wouldn't generalize from your experience. I've never had to compromise, and my kids turned out great. So there you have a bunch of other feminists, you know, pontificating on why she left, and playing her like she's weak or something because she couldn't hack it, or because she chose to go home and be a mother, which is very difficult for a feminist to fathom. The first set of my reactions with the underlying assumptions that my choice was somehow sad or unfortunate was irksome enough. But it was the second set of reflections, those implying that my parenting or my commitment to my profession was somehow substandard. That triggered a blind fury. Suddenly, finally, the penny dropped. All my life, I had been on the other side of the exchange. I had been the woman smiling, the flanny superior smile, while another woman told me she had decided to take some time out to pursue a less competitive career track. And there lies the issue right there. They're trying to be in a very, very competitive field where even men have issues with competing on. And I'm gonna get to the point of why I'm saying that. She's saying that, we can't do it, but instead of admitting that, she wants to say that we can do it. We just need to change the rules. And I'll get to that later. But I had been on the other side of the exchange, and I had been willing the faintly superiority smile, while another woman told me she had decided to take some time out or to pursue a less competitive career so that she could spend more time with the family. That seems like a good idea, right? I had been a woman congratulating herself on unanswering commitment to the feminist cause. See, her trying to reach up to this standard of super mom, super career woman was the feminist cause. No one else told her that. Society didn't say that. Men definitely didn't tell her to do any of that. Her husband didn't tell her to do that. Her kids didn't want to do that. I'm sure her husband wanted her home, and I'm sure her children, her boys, wanted her to be in their lives. But she's chosen to live up to this feminist standard, this commitment to them, not her family. Chatting smug with her dwindling number of colleagues or law school friends who have reached and maintained their place on the highest rungs of their professional. I've been one telling young women at my lectures, you can have it all, do it all, regardless of what field you are in, which means I'd be a part unwilling of making millions of women feel that they are to blame. No, it's a reality that you might have to make that choice. That's a situation that women don't want to acknowledge. And that's the problem with this generation of fembots is they're not having children. They're waiting till they're 30, 40 to get married or even to think about that. And they're not trying to do the juggle thing because they don't want to feel like she's feeling. They don't want to go through all those things. And they're not getting married at all. Or they're waiting later to have children, which is not a good idea. And for a lot of cases, for a lot of women, it's a really bad idea because you won't ever get married. What does she say? Which means I be a part of the unwilling making millions of women feel that they are to blame if they cannot manage to rise up to the ladder as fast as men. You can't rise up to the ladder as fast as men if you have a husband and children. That's just common sense. Some situations it's different in reality for some men who have wife and children because employers see that as motivations to do more work, and his time isn't as divided as hers is, being that she would be more there because children want to be around their moms, not so much their dads. Um, they cannot. What does she say here? Cannot rise up to the ladder as fast as men, so that they also have a family and an active home life, but and be thin and beautiful too. The boot, I don't know where that came from at all. That has nothing to do with it. I'm pretty sure being active and healthy would help you and benefit you, but that's not no standard anybody's trying to put on you. So here you have an audio interview with Anne-Marie Slaughter, and she's talking with Hannah Rosen. You know who she is, the feminist who wrote the book The Rise of Women, The End of Men, which is totally by design. Um, I guess this is the article where she's talking about whether or not has feminism sold women, younger women, a bill of goods, like has it lied to them. There's a video where Gloria Steinem says that feminism never told women that they could have it all. She's saying that society told them that, which is not true. Society didn't tell women any of that. It's feminists, other women telling women that they need to do all this stuff, that they need to be super mom and super high profile workers. And the reality is that, because they believe that equality means that you have to change the rules so that I could be able to compete at your level, because biology says something different. But let's just listen to what they have to say about this topic of, has it, feminism tricked younger women? Because like I'm saying, you see now a lot of females that are younger are choosing to finish college first before they start families and before they have children, which, you know, is a lot of reasons, a lot of negative results of that choice to make. The birth rate in our country is going down, and the reality is the chance of that female getting married older is slim to none, or actually getting what she wants, the type of man that she might want. Because my issue is more that the feminists who want to be feminists by day, but they want to be traditionalists by night, meaning they want to be able to be, superwoman, but then at the same time they don't offer a lot of uh, the nurturing, the femininity, the things, just being a woman. They don't tend to offer a lot of those things because they're career and goal oriented first, then family, then marriage. But let's just see what they had to say.
Anna Rosen, and I'm a writer for the Atlantic Magazine, and I'm here today in conversation with Anne Marie Slaughter about her new cover story, Why Women Can't Have It All. One argument you make is that a generation of feminists has sold a fiction to a younger generation of feminists. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So the message has been you can have it all, and it's been a month.
Again, Gloria Steinem says that we did not tell women that, but obviously it was someone who told you that.
But what the younger women I'm talking to are saying is, we appreciate that you made those sacrifices. You opened doors for us, but if we have to choose between making partner and having 3 nannies, right, or taking a more flexible legal job and spending time with our children, we're going to do the.
And right there, you see why women typically make less, because they're choosing to be wives and mothers, and they're choosing less demanding jobs that divide their attention from being wives and moms. That's one of the reasons why they make 73% less. That reason right there. She's acknowledging that they choose jobs that are less competitive, less demanding of your time, allow you to work less hours. But we're gonna get to why she thinks that needs to change.
The latter, but that what we're saying to them is somehow that's not a valid choice.
So let's break it down a little bit. When did the realization come to you?
So, first place, I've always been a tenured professor, which is indeed a great life and, above all, great flexibility. And I was a dean. And then
that's why females dominate academia.
I get this call from Hillary Clinton offering me to be director of policy planning, which is my dream job in the world. It's a job I would have always been thrilled to take. But my kids are 10 and 12 when I leave. And over the next 2 years, I'm dealing with adolescents in Princeton and essentially a job with a fantastic boss, but a boss.
Right.
And so for the first time, I had to be on somebody else's schedule, meeting somebody else's deadline.
It's called a real job.
While my children really needed me, and the two things did not fit well together, and suddenly I realized that I've been able to do everything I've done because of that flexibility.
One thing that you said that's kind of depressing is about how even if you have a husband who's a totally willing, equal partner in the situation, which
totally equal having partner means he's a house husband probably.
Is a solution that I have facilely put out many times in my writing life. Why isn't that enough?
In my case, I found that my husband was fabulous. He was there all the time, but he's a man. I had 2 sons. There was enough testosterone running around my household to power an army. In other words, the dynamic with my sons really required, I felt, that I be there as well. So I think it's often a necessary condition, but it isn't a sufficient condition for many people.
One thing that I really loved, which you put in print, which I think so few women say, which is that I want to be home.
No, absolutely. And that was actually one of the hardest sentences in the entire article to write, and in the first drafts of the article it wasn't there. It took me 8 months to sort out.
So it took her 8 months just to write a sentence that states, "I'd rather be at home watching my little boys grow up," being that I only have 18 years with them. It took her 8 months just to write some words because it would remove her from her, feminist statue. She's probably knows she's gonna get attacked by other feminists by saying like, "Yo, I'd rather be at home with my kids." Why was it so hard just to write those words? It took her 8 months just to write that little sentence. That's terrible.
That fundamentally, even if I could make it work, I wanted to be home. My children are only going to be home for 5 more years. My son's 6 feet tall, and I look at him and think, oh my God,
Does that mean my son's 6 feet tall?
quite possibly. And I just thought, getting up and making waffles, and going to a baseball game, or all these silly little things.
Silly little things, aka being a mother.
That's the reason we had children. And it like broke everything I grew up with. I want to be home. It's not that I don't want to work. I do want to work, but I want to work in a way that allows me to be home much more than a high-level government job would let me do.
Exactly.
Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook, who you mentioned in your story several times, made big news recently because she said she leaves the office at 5:30. Now, I reported a section of my book in Silicon Valley, and what I discovered was that it's just, they work like crazy. They just work very flexible. You have several different meditations.
You don't have that option in the real world.
On time, how we value a mother's time versus how we value, you mentioned a marathon, right?
So, imagine that you're in a job and one of the guys in the job runs marathons. And what you would assume about that person is that they're incredibly disciplined and that they get out there and run a couple of hours before they come to work or after work. They make themselves, no matter how tired they are, they get out there and work out. And then I said, now imagine the average mother who has
that I know,
who rises very early in the morning, who probably does email before her kids get up, who then gets her kids up, makes lunch, works all day, goes home, still doing email. She's putting in the same kind of time. It's the same kind of discipline. It's the same kind of, ability and pace.
Exactly.
And yet, do most employers think of her the same way they would think of a marathon runner? And I don't think.
No, because you're an employee, meaning you work for them, meaning they're not going to pay you more than it takes them to do something they can do themselves. It's not like a freaking resort or some type of club. It's a job where you have mandates and deadlines and you have to do things, and your outside life is irrelevant to the employer. It's always been that way. But like she's stating, her point is that needs to change so that women can compete.
They do.
I'm an employer. What is it you want me to draw from this story?
I want you to realize that unless you make it possible for the women who work for you to balance their work and family in the way they want to, with flexibility, with all sorts of different kinds of
the way they wanted to. So the only way that this situation is going to change is if you give every high-powered career woman the opportunity to let her decide or dictate when she's going to come to work. Really?
You are going to lose a huge amount of talent. And
that's good.
Not going to be smart for you, for your business, for the society.
There's a reason why that picture's there, because there's an amazing scene in the movie Law Abiding Citizens that's relevant to this topic, but I wanted to talk about why. So basically, the recap is that the female from the interview was stating that, it's hard work. She can't deal with the emotional ties and bonds she has with her children, not getting to see them grow up. And in order for her to be able to, be super feminist mom / wife, career woman first, employers have to change the game. They have to make it more feasible for them so they can compete with men, which they can't do without the rules being changed. And, my issue is that this dynamic of the work-life balance, is what she stated, it's been going on forever for men. And no one decided to say, what can we do to make men have more time with their families and men be able to, not miss out on their kids' graduations and problems. And this movie, Law Abiding Citizens, is great because it hits both sides. But basically, men have for the last 100 years been working away from their home, taking jobs and occupations that, divide their attention and time from their family. I listened to Dave Ramsey for years, and there was the dynamic of the work-life balance for men. And he got these guys trying to get out of debt, and they call in, they be like, man, I work 3 or 4 jobs, I 70, 80 hours a week, I don't see my family, I don't see my kids, where's the balance? And Dave Ramsey told him the truth, there's no such thing as a balance. There's phases in your life where you might have to work a lot of overtime and you won't see your children. There's times where you might work less and you get to spend more time with your kids. The goal is to have a plan and a goal and not to let something go on prolonged for a while. But that's the situation that men have been going through since forever. And no one has decided, no employer said, well, I'm going to do X, Y, Z so that you can spend more time with your family. Men know that if I take this career, I might have my attention and time divided. That's why I need to choose a wife who can deal with this type of career, me being away from home, whether it's a soldier going abroad or a politician who's always out of town or a businessman. He needs a wife that can deal with that type of behavior or that environment because he needs that support system for him at home. Now you got women who wanted to take on man's curse, meaning they want to be men, and now they're getting the results of that with the they're stressed out more, they're dying prematurely now, heart disease and stress related issues. Their infertility rates are out of the roof because of the stress, because they really can't compete. Biology does matter. Apparently feminists don't want to acknowledge that, but it does. But anyways, they're becoming men, or they want to take on man's curse, and now they're realizing that it's not working. So now they have to redefine the system and make it so that it will work for them.
I don't know. I'm 35, Nick. And there are things, there are possibilities that I'm not going to have now. And it's okay. I know it's part of the deal. And don't get me wrong, I love working for you. I just want to make sure that I gave up those things for more than just a high conviction rate.
One of the callers called in basically, and Dave, who asked that question, Dave really said, the dynamic of a man's psyche is like, if I work too much and work too hard, and I because men are seen as human doings, not human beings. Manhood is based on what a man does in the society. So he's like, working hard, and he loves what he does, and he's making that money, but he's also being demanded, by his employer to do what he has to do. And, there's a chance that he can come home and his wife and children will be gone because he's never there, not around. And his children might resent him because, he didn't go to ball games, didn't go see them at soccer practice, and didn't spend a lot of time with them. You see that dynamic in a lot of older TV shows where the dad just comes home stressed out and upset and angry, and he just wants to chill. But like I said, that's the dynamic that's been going on for a while. And now that females are 51% of the workforce, they're going to get that dynamic changed, because they are. And I'll give you an example of how that will be changed. But the reality is that this situation is been going on for a really long time. And basically the guy replied, Dave said that, what if I work all hours and I don't have a home when I come home because I'm never there? Or if you don't work enough or have enough ambition to do more, you still lose your family. So it's like there's no balance. You just have to have a plan and know what you're doing, and you have to have a spouse or a wife or whatever who's cool with that and knows like, yo, this is what we're gonna do. But again, females, because they're spoiled little brides, they don't have to make those tough decisions anymore. They're gonna get society to change on their behalf.
You going to the Doors recital this afternoon?
I thought you were going to order the DVDs.
It's not the same, Nick.
It's okay. That's gotta work, I know.
See, it's all right. Dad's got to work. And what is Dad doing today?
Walk outside, Dad.
And why does he do that?
To keep us safe.
Yeah, because he wants us to be safe.
This scene coming up right here is a perfect illustration of, a man who's really, really ambitious with his job and has a high demanding job. And he still, he writes the checks, he builds the big home, he gives her everything she wants, but he's not exactly always there. And a lot of times those situations end in divorce, like I said, and she gets half his money and ends up paying child support. and he gets to see his children less than he saw them in the first place. But that dynamic of a man, having to make that choice, or saying like, okay, we're gonna do this for so long, and then when I make it here, in reality, some of the careers, there is never going to be that break until you're retired or until you're done. But just think about the dynamic of how it would be for a man to have to compete with the women who, in the same field, same boat, same credentials, but because she's a woman and a mother, she gets special treatment. She gets to work when she wants to, whereas he doesn't have that option to do that. He has to continue to deal with that. I mean, how does that work in a competitive field where you're striving for the same job? Even in this movie, the mayor of the city, was Jamie Foxx. He was trying to become district attorney, and then there was the mayor above him, and she was a woman. So it's like, how does that work too when you're working for a woman who didn't have to have, go through the same avenues of every other man who's got the job before you? And that's something really to think about. It's like they're not gonna make it less tenuous on men who have to make those tough decisions. So why should they make them like that for females? And what does that look like for the future of really important high-powered jobs when a woman is in that situation where she's in that conflict of thinking about her kids, and she has some important stuff to do that doesn't just affect her, but it affects society as a whole and her decision-making skills. I think it's going to be a bad thing in the future when the rest of these companies and these situations catch on. But that movie is a great example of what happens, or that scene is a great scene to illustrate men constantly being hounded and hagged about not being home enough, not doing enough around the house as far as being a family. But if he doesn't do enough in the workforce and doesn't do enough as a provider, he'll still have those same issues. And that situation has always been going forth. But in the past, men just dealt with it. And some women who were strong enough to understood this is how we're going to make our family work. But now, not so much. And it's going to be weird, competing with women who don't have to have that same level of sacrifice to make, put it that way.
She's 10 years old, right? You know that?
I'm gonna
She doesn't understand why you never ran. This week got that stuff. Let's just talk to her.
Come on. I can't come today.
You know you have not been to one recital.
Yes, you have.
Enough.
Okay. Well, we'll get the video. We'll sit down and we'll watch it together.
Women and the work-life balance. I think the only time motherhood really comes up for me is when I do hear these people speak, or I read these articles about successful women and see how it's been a problem for them.
Yeah, I'm hoping to go to law school after this, and I plan on getting married. We'll see where things go.
There are a lot of women whom I know personally who do it and make it work.
I definitely want to have children, but I definitely have a lot of career goals as well.
So the question about having it all, what do you guys think about that question, just as the general concept?
I hate the have it all question. I find that it's so infantilizing. Do you ask that? Do you want to have it all? Would you ask it to a man? You know what I mean?
So what does having it all mean to you?
I thought it applied more to women.
Have you given any thought to whether or not you'd want to have a spouse, kids, a career?
It's difficult to say because just before I arrived to New York, I broke up with my girlfriend.
I definitely hear this conversation about whether women can have it all. I guess it's hard for me to relate to it just because I never imagined myself having the kind of career that Barnard women talk about.
I don't even know what it all would be. I'm sorry, I just have a lot of rage about this. Someone could consider themselves to have it all when they just have kids, or vice versa. If they just have a career, they could consider themselves to have it all. I think it just depends on what you want.
I'm Deborah Spar, the president of Barnard College. I want to urge women to understand that of course they can't have it all, because no human being can have it all. And women today of my generation and generations younger have had their expectations raised so high that they're really just setting themselves up for failure. I think there are ways of dialing back that don't involve regressing or giving up any of the goals of the women's movement or of feminism. I think part of this is about women and men just being more explicit in saying, I can't do that. I'm sorry, I can't volunteer for the bake sale. I can't work until 8 tonight. Because that'll be the 4th night in a row I've worked until 8 tonight. We have to feel more confident about saying, I can't do everything. Men don't get quite enough credit for also having undergone a massive transformation. If we think about the lives of your average husband today, it's turned topsy-turvy from what his grandfather would have experienced. And women have had lots of time to sort of think about and mull over the changes, but men were somehow expected just to kind of figure it out. One of the things I'm trying to argue in the piece is that we have to make men part of the solution. And at least in my experience, men really want to be part of the solution. They don't want to be the enemies. They're not the enemies. They are the husbands and the fathers and the brothers. So I think women need to bring men into the conversation. And I think women need to be a little bit more honest about talking about the real barriers they face in juggling their lives.